To start, the first thing we're going to need is to install what's called the Microsoft Access Database Engine Redistributable. And you can do a search for this, or you can go to Microsoft site and search there. I already have this installed from the previous demo. What I want to mention again is when you come to download this file, be sure to download the 32-bit, which is the one that does not say x64. We'll see later on why we're doing this, but be sure to download and install the 32-bit. For this project, you will need the Integration Services module installed. If you do not have that installed, you can click down here on the right, Continue Without Code, and in the VS screen, go to Extensions, Manage Extensions, go to Extensions and Manage Extensions, and then just type in Integration in the search box. And I already have it installed. We're going to create an Integration Services project. So we're going to create a new project, an Integration Services project. And we'll just call this SSIS Excel to SQL table. Once you're in the IDE, I'd like to rename the package so I know what it's for. The first thing we're going to need is to make a connection to the Excel spreadsheet as it is now the source. So we'll need a data flow task. Double click on that, and then on the other sources you'll see the Excel source. Drag that in. Double click on that, and this is where we choose the Excel spreadsheet. Now from the previous example, we exported to this results file, so I'm going to use the same results file. I changed it a little bit. I took out some of the rows, changed some of the columns. So what we're going to do is these are basically strings. We have an ID, and then we have a bit. Just wanted to mix some of this up. Be sure that you do not have the source spreadsheet open because you'll run into access errors when you try to run the package. We're going to create a new Excel connection. Browse to the file. Should be 2010. First column does not have the names. I click OK. Now it has the file name, but it doesn't have the sheet. If you had multiple sheets in your spreadsheet, you're going to need to make sure which sheet you're actually going to be importing. And we only have one sheet in there, so it makes it easy. I can preview it just to make sure it's actually pulling the data. And then under the columns, I can turn off or uncheck columns that I don't want to include. Just like we did with the database, we can remove fields. That way you're not transferring data that's not necessary. We now have our source set up. We need a destination. Go down to Other Destinations and OLEDB destination. And we can connect these. We're going to create a new table in the Wide World Importers database and load that table with the data from the spreadsheet. So we could create the table manually here, but I want to demonstrate that an SSIS will do it for you, just like we did with the Excel spreadsheet. So in our OLEDB destination, double click on that. And mine's actually already in here, but you're going to need to use your instance and database information. If you don't have it already in there, make a connection. Data access mode is a table, even though the table does not exist yet. Then we click New. And this is the creates table statement, similar to what we did with the spreadsheet. I'm going to change this destination because that table name doesn't make any sense. So we'll just say results, import is the name of the table. F1 was the name. I'm going to leave that as an nvarchar. The second field was an ID. This one I'm going to change. I'm going to make this an integer. The third one is also a name. It's a nickname. So we'll just leave that as an nvarchar. And the last one was a bit. So I'm going to call that the enabled field, and I'm going to make that a bit, or true and false. Just like in SQL Server Management Studio, I can copy and paste this statement and run the create statement in Management Studio, but instead of doing that, we're going to demonstrate doing it here. Now the table has been created. We can click View Existing. Obviously there's nothing in it yet. And under the mappings, we can now map what we want to the destination tables. And then just go right down 1, 2, 3, 4. Now looking at the database, we'll have to refresh this. We now see the results import table. It's been created and it's ready for SSIS to load it. Nothing's in there right now. So back to SSIS. One last thing we needed to do, I mentioned the 64-bit and the 32-bit engine. If I run this right now, it will not work. What you need is to change the project level properties under the configuration properties and debugging. You'll need to change this run 64-bit runtime to false. We need the package to run as a 32-bit. Okay, and we should be able to execute. And it looks like we're successful. I'm going to stop this, and we'll go back to our table. And there's the data from the spreadsheet. Notice the enabled field, which is actually a yes or no inside the spreadsheet, has been converted to a 0 or 1, a bit field. That was done by the SQL engine. Now you may or may not have to actually do conversions depending on the data type and if the SSIS service will do the conversion for you. So things like date times, usually you end up having to convert it to something that SQL Server can recognize. That's probably the most common one. One last thing I wanted to mention is if you run this again, just like the spreadsheet, this is going to load the data into the table again. So in our case, we've got about, I guess we can just do a count. 3,332 rows. So if I run this package again, there's no steps in here to truncate, delete, drop, or recreate the table. So I should now have double 6,664 records. So every time you run this at this point, it's going to end up just adding to the table. Obviously, if you're loading the table for temporary reasons or maybe renewing data, you might need to look into something like truncating it first. Look into something like the slowly changing tables. Please leave your comments below and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.